It really is an honor for me to be here with you tonight, and I thank you all for taking your time to come and be with us this evening. It's particularly an honor to be with my very dear friends, all of you who are so brave and courageous as members of the Black Pro-Life Coalition. It's particularly poignant for all of us tonight as we're all grieving, gathering tonight in the shadow of what happened on Thursday night with the murderous racial violence that unfolded in Charleston. So it's really appropriate and deeply humbling that we meet here in Selma, which is a special place. It is a special and very historic place. There's a real heritage here, a heritage of spilled blood that we must commit our hearts to be worthy of. We are inspired by the brave men and women who stood here, right where we are, who stood together to say that people of color deserve equal protection under the law. They marched together to claim their human rights established by God and to insist that their civil rights must be upheld by secular authorities. This is our heritage, and here tonight on the anniversary of Juneteenth, when we celebrate the end of slavery, and standing in a place where heroes fought a great battle for civil rights, we come together to say that we fight against the abortion industry, and this is our great human rights battle of our generation. Ladies and gentlemen, it pains me to say this, but we all know here tonight that abortion is rooted in racism. Its history is cloaked with the foul odor of eugenic racism, and it continues so today. We know that Black women are the target. They are sought out when women are their most vulnerable so that an evil industry can profit from their pain. We know that abortion is the #1 killer of Black lives in the United States, more than diabetes, more than heart disease, more than cancer. Abortion snuffs out more Black lives than all other causes of death combined. This is what Margaret Sanger set out to accomplish when she established the Negro Project in 1939, and now today Black women account for 37% of all abortions. They bear the brunt of an unregulated and unscrupulous and unrepentant industry. Planned Parenthood is targeting these women all while claiming to be defenders of women's health. So in that context, we are here tonight to say that Black women matter. The death of Tanya Reeves at the hand of Planned Parenthood, a single mother from the south side of Chicago, her death matters. The death of Lakeisha Wilson in a Cleveland clinic, her death matters. The death of woman after woman after woman whose name I heard recited on the bus from Atlanta to Selma today, names that I didn't know, their deaths mattered. Why do I not know their names? We should all know their names. There should be marches in the street for their names because it's not right. It's not right. Their lives matter. Abortion harms women, and as African American women bear a disproportionate burden of that risk, we must fight for pro-life laws to be enforced for their sake and for the sake of all women. Abortion harms women. It is simply not right that the abortion industry is allowed to continue operating outside the law because so many of their victims don't have access to society's levers of power. Their deaths, their injuries matter. Black women matter. Pro-life laws must be enforced to protect the women who suffer behind the closed doors of abortion clinics. Despite the fact that abortion harms all women, there is no denying that African American women bear a greater burden of the travesty of an abortion clinic. Today, we stand in solidarity with women throughout America, and in a special way with the minority and poor women who are targeted and exploited by big abortion. For over 40 years, Americans United for Life has provided legal services to the pro-life community, and we've responded to the horrors of abortion with more than 50 pieces of model legislation published in Defending Life annually, which is our guidebook of pro-life legislation. We put this book together and we send it out to pro-life legislators across the country every year in January in order to help them as they look to the possibility of passing pro-life legislation. Our priority legislative package is called the Women's Protection Project, largely because to reflect this concern of ours that abortion harms women and people are not aware of it. The Women's Protection Project is a package of model laws that can be passed to protect women from a greedy industry that puts profits over people. And we know that pro-life laws do save lives. According to scholar Michael New, legislative efforts to enact parental involvement laws, informed consent laws, and limits on taxpayer funding of abortion have contributed to a 25% nationwide decline in the number of abortions performed since 1992. But we know that all too often, even after we've worked to pass pro-life laws, civil authorities choose to ignore them and lives are lost. All of us here tonight, we remember Kermit Gosnell and his house of horrors in Pennsylvania. Kermit Gosnell today is a convicted murderer and an abortionist, but he could have been stopped if only Pennsylvania officials had enforced the pro-life laws that were already on the books. I might also add, people in authority knew what was going on in his clinic. Planned Parenthood has admitted that they knew and they didn't care. We were talking on the bus today. Kermit Gosnell admitted that he cleaned up his clinic a little bit when the women from the suburbs came into his clinic, but he left it in its filth for the poor women who didn't have access to society's levers of power. So after the bodies of the babies were discovered, some of them killed after birth, we learned through the grand jury investigative report that a political decision had been made to ignore the laws that would have stopped Kermit Gosnell. He made millions in his legal yet unregulated clinic, and yet he refused to spend money to sterilize his equipment or meet basic health and safety codes. And I can tell you today, this is something that offends me deeply. Americans United for Life works on clinic regulations all across the country, and so I get called on to debate people from the other side pretty frequently about these outrageous clinic regulations that we support. I one time had a chance to debate Elise Hogue from NARAL, and she, on PBS, said that Americans United for Life is imposing all these ridiculous and extraordinary, unreasonable requirements on clinics. And the host of the show had the decency to ask her, what kind of regulations exactly do you mean? And she said, well, silly things like the width of hallways. Well, we know from the grand jury's report that one of the reasons that Karnamaya Mongar died was because they couldn't get her out of the clinic because of the width of the hallways. Right. It makes a difference to women's lives how they are treated inside abortion clinics. And ladies and gentlemen, we know that Kermit Gosnell is no aberration when it comes to abortion providers evading the law. Now, to be clear, the very first legal line of defense for women in abortion clinics when it comes to the law must be the state and local officials properly and consistently enforcing a state's abortion-related laws. And that's what we're here to talk about tonight, is in so many instances they are not doing that, and we must hold them to account. They must be enforcing the law. But I believe that Catherine was inspired when she called us all together to come to Selma. I believe that she was inspired. Because just as the civil authorities refuse to allow black citizens their legal right to vote, today they too often turn a blind eye to illegal atrocities in the abortion industry. It is time for us to act. It is time for this industry that preys on vulnerable women to be held to account. Our Americans United for Life legal team has created an enforcement module as a tool to empower individuals and organizations to enforce the laws when officials do not defend women and girls from the criminal acts of abortionists. This is the missing link in our legal defense against abortion industry abuses. AUL's enforcement module empowers the people. It empowers communities to take action when the authorities refuse to, when they allow abortionists free rein. The enforcement module, when passed by a legislature and signed into law, creates a private right of action for the individual to hold the state accountable for enforcing the laws that protect life in their communities. On behalf of our entire team at Americans United for Life, I want to tell you how proud we are to work alongside other members of the Selma Project to educate people about how to get involved in protecting the innocent. Today, we are here to remember the names of precious women who lost their lives in an underregulated, callous, profit-centered industry, sometimes protected deliberately or negligently by political officials. We are here to say that their lives mattered. We will not be silent. Women's lives are on the line, and black women matter.